Hi everyone, I'm Emily. I'm 29 now, but this all happened a little over 2 years ago on a cool September evening when I walked into the Harborview restaurant about 20 minutes late. I'd been stuck on back-to-back client calls all afternoon, trying to lock down final details for a corporate gala, because my fiancé Ethan had spent the day on the golf course with his buddies instead of helping with the wedding planning like we'd agreed that morning. I spotted our usual corner booth right away. Ethan was holding court as always, surrounded by his college friends, Tyler, Brandon, and their girlfriends Lisa and Jenna, the same group I'd quietly paid for dinners, weekend getaways, bottles of wine, you name it, for the better part of 2 years. And then I heard it. I don't want to marry her anymore. She's just worthless to me now. The words landed like a punch to the chest. I was standing maybe 3 feet behind Ethan's chair, close enough to see him swirl the expensive rye whiskey in his glass, the $28 pour I'd been buying him ever since he left his corporate job 18 months earlier to build his consulting brand. He had no idea I was there. His back was to me, and he kept going, voice full of that casual confidence I used to find so attractive. Tyler laughed, leaning in. Come on, man, you've been together 3 years. What changed? Nothing changed, Ethan said, taking another sip of my whiskey. I just woke up and realized I can do better. She's fine for now, but long-term, I need someone with real drive, real ambition. The irony stung so deep I almost laughed out loud. The woman they were talking about, the one who apparently had no ambition, had been single-handedly keeping Ethan's entire life afloat while he figured things out. Lisa noticed me first. Her eyes went wide, hand flying to her mouth. But she didn't say a word to warn him. She just stared, like she was watching a train wreck in slow motion. Ethan kept talking, oblivious. Look at her career, event planning. She throws parties for a living. My next partner needs actual professional success. Someone who elevates me, not someone I have to carry. More laughter around the table. These same people had attended the events I'd planned, eaten the food I'd paid for, stayed in the vacation homes I'd booked. Not one of them pointed out how ridiculous this all sounded. Brandon grinned. So what's the exit plan? Weddings in 6 weeks. Ethan shrugged like it was a business decision. I've been pulling back slowly, creating distance. She'll probably call it off herself soon. She's already feeling the tension. I stood there, frozen, listening to the man I was supposed to marry in 6 weeks lay out his breakup strategy like he was closing a deal. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. If you've ever been completely blindsided by someone you trusted with everything, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you're watching this, stick around, because what happened next, well, Ethan never saw it coming. And just like that, the noise of the restaurant seemed to fade away. All I could hear was my own heartbeat and the soft clink of silverware in the background. I took one quiet step forward, then another, until I was right beside Ethan's chair. He was mid-sentence, still laughing about how I thought paying for everything made me a good partner. When he finally turned and saw me, his face went from smug to pure shock in a split second. The glass in his hand froze halfway to his mouth. The whole table went dead silent, like someone had hit mute on the entire room. I looked at him for a long moment. Really looked. This was the man I'd spent 3 years supporting, defending, building a future with, the one I'd been ready to marry in 6 weeks. Slowly, I slipped the engagement ring off my finger. The diamond caught the light one last time before I set it down on the white tablecloth right in front of him. It made a small, clear click against the wood. Well, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, that makes things easier. I was wondering whether I should sell this or just return it to cover the wedding deposits you never intended to help pay for. Ethan's mouth opened, but nothing came out at first. Emily, wait, I wasn't expecting you yet. You meant every word, I said quietly. The only mistake was saying them out loud where I could hear. I looked around the table, at Tyler trying to disappear into his seat, at Lisa staring at her plate like it held the answers, at Brandon suddenly very interested in his phone. Tyler, I said calmly, how long have you known that the apartment lease is in my name only? The car payments? The credit cards? All of it, my accounts, my credit, my money. Nobody answered. The air felt thick, heavy. I picked up my bag and took a step back. You all seem to think Ethan's the prize here. This charming, successful guy who's settling for little old worthless me. I let that hang for a second. But for the last 18 months, I've been the only thing keeping your friend from complete financial ruin. And now, you'll all get to see just how successful he is on his own. Ethan finally found his voice. Emily, please, let's talk about this outside. It wasn't. No, I said, cutting him off gently but firmly. We're done talking. I turned and walked out of the harbor view without looking back. The cool night air hit my face. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I could actually breathe. Behind me, I heard chairs scraping, muffled voices rising in panic. Someone calling my name, but I kept walking. 3 years of my life. An October wedding I'd spent months planning. A future I'd poured everything into. All of it gone in one conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. But underneath the hurt and the anger, there was something else I didn't expect. Relief. Pure, quiet relief. And that was just the beginning of everything changing. To really understand how I ended up standing in that restaurant listening to the man I loved call me worthless, I need to take you back a couple of years, to the beginning. I met Ethan in the fall of 2021 at a downtown networking event. He was magnetic, tall, well-dressed, quick with a smile and a story. He told me he was a senior strategist at a big marketing firm, with plans to launch his own consulting agency soon. He talked about vision boards, revenue projections, the kind of life we could build together. I was impressed. I'd worked hard to grow my event planning business from scratch, and his ambition felt like a perfect match. The first few months were like a dream. He planned beautiful dates, rooftop bars, weekend drives up the coast, dinners at places I'd only seen on Instagram. When he mentioned he was having temporary cash flow issues during the transition out of his corporate job, helping felt natural, just until the new business took off. He said, "A dinner here, a hotel stay there. I'll pay you back the minute my first big client signs." He promised. But the payback never came. The temporary help stretched into months. Then a full year. Suddenly I was covering rent on the sleek downtown loft he insisted we needed to look the part. I paid for the premium gym membership that was crucial for networking. I funded the designer suits, the watches, the golf outings he called business development, all while I was pulling 60, sometimes 70-hour weeks landing bigger corporate clients, refining every detail of my events to build my reputation. Ethan's job search slowed, then stopped completely. His meetings turned out to be long lunches or rounds of golf with the same friends. The consulting brand he was building? It lived mostly in polished Instagram posts, motivational quotes over photos of coffee cups and city skylines. No website, no clients, no revenue. I told myself it was temporary, that he just needed more time, that real entrepreneurs go through lean periods. I defended him to my friends when they gently asked why I was always the one paying. I turned down a promotion that involved travel because Ethan said he needed me around for his unpredictable schedule. Standing behind him that night at the harbor view, hearing him dismiss my career and my worth like I was some temporary inconvenience, it all clicked into place. I hadn't been his partner. I'd been his safety net, his investor, his convenience. And the worst part? He truly believed he deserved better. By the time I reached my car that evening, my hands were shaking, but not from sadness, from clarity. The 3-block walk felt like stepping out of a fog I hadn't even realized I was in. My phone started buzzing before I even pulled out of the parking lot. Ethan, of course. I let it ring. Instead, I dialed my bank's after-hours line. "Hi, this is Emily Harper. I need to remove an authorized user from all my accounts. Effective immediately." The representative was calm, efficient, cards blocked, new ones overnighted, fraud alerts placed, 3 years of financial ties severed in a single 15-minute call. Next, credit cards, car loan, gym membership, every subscription with his name attached, all canceled or transferred. When I got home to the apartment I'd been paying for a loan, I found his spare key on the kitchen island next to his emergency credit card, neatly cut in half. A note in his handwriting: "We need to talk. This isn't how I wanted things to go." Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I didn't mean it." Just regret that his carefully planned exit had blown up in his face. I poured myself a glass of the good wine I'd been saving for a celebration that never seemed to come. And I started making lists. Vendors to cancel, deposits I'd lose, bills to separate, friends, real friends, to tell the truth to. And for the first time in years, every decision on that list was mine alone. The wedding was over. The life I thought we were building was over. But something new was just beginning. The next morning started with pounding on my door at 7 sharp. "Emily, open up. We need to talk." Ethan's voice carried that edge of panic I'd never heard before. The smooth, confident tone from the night before was gone. I didn't rush to the door. I made coffee instead, slow, deliberate pours of the rich Colombian blend I'd been saving for special mornings that never seemed to arrive. I checked emails while the pounding continued, rising and falling like a bad symphony. The wedding venue had already responded to my cancellation email, understanding, sympathetic, keeping the deposit but wishing me well. The photographer offered to donate any prep shots to a charity auction. Small kindnesses that felt huge in the moment. Around 7:30, my neighbor Mrs. Ellis knocked gently, holding a warm plate of cinnamon muffins. "Sweetheart, that young man's been out there over an hour. Should I call someone?" I smiled at her through the peephole. "Actually, yes, that would be perfect." The pounding stopped the second the patrol car pulled up. I watched from the window as Ethan tried to explain, calm at first, then louder, that this was a misunderstanding. That he lived here, that his fiancé was just upset. The officers asked for proof of residency, lease agreement, mail in his name, anything. He had nothing, everything was in my name only. They were polite but firm, he couldn't force entry. And continued disturbance would mean charges. Ethan's shoulders slumped as he nodded. I'd never seen him look so small. By noon, Lisa showed up, the one I genuinely thought was my friend. She stood in the hallway looking uncomfortable. "Emily, please, Ethan's a wreck. He's crashing on Tyler's couch. He can't even buy groceries. You're being harsh." I opened the door but stayed in the frame. "Lisa, let me ask you something honest. When he stood in that restaurant and called me worthless, told everyone he was planning to leave me, what did you think would happen next?" She hesitated. "He was just venting. Guys do that. For 18 months I paid for every dinner, every trip, every bottle of wine you all drank. Did you ever once think that was strange? Ever suggest he might be using me?" Silence. "I thought you were just generous," she mumbled. "Generous with money I earned while working full-time. Yes, generous because I was afraid if I stopped, he'd leave. Turns out he was planning to leave anyway." Lisa shifted her weight. "So you're really not going to help him at all?" "I'm not going to keep funding the lifestyle of a man who thinks I'm worthless. That version of me is gone." She left looking shaken, and I closed the door feeling a little stronger. Over the next week, Ethan tried every move in the book. First came the guilt texts. Long paragraphs about how I was abandoning him in his time of need. How cruel I was being. How this wasn't the woman he fell in love with. Then the business approach. A detailed email with spreadsheets projecting how his consulting firm would finally take off and how he'd repay every dollar within 18 months. Then the romantic play. Flowers delivered to my office, lilies. Even though I'd told him multiple times they make me sneeze. A card promising he'd change. That he saw my worth now. None of it landed, because I'd heard his real opinion loud and clear that night at the restaurant. Once you know someone sees you as worthless, their sudden love declarations feel pretty hollow. The final straw came when building security called up to my office one afternoon. "Miss Harper, there's a gentleman in the lobby saying he's your fiancé and that you're having a mental health crisis. He wants to take you home." My stomach dropped. Security had already asked for proof, shared ID, medical power of attorney. He had none. They escorted him out, but I knew I needed more protection. That evening I met with a lawyer. She confirmed what I already knew. Everything was legally mine. No claims, no rights for him, but she helped me document every contact, every attempt, just in case. I also finally told my boss the full story. She listened quietly, then said, "So for 3 years you've been working 2 jobs, your actual career and keeping this guy's life running?" I hadn't thought of it that way. But, yes. "And now that you're not doing the second job anymore, you've got bandwidth again?" I nodded. "Good," she said, "because that senior coordinator promotion is still open. The one with travel. Think you're ready to talk about it now?" I smiled for the first time in days. Yes, I really am. Ethan's carefully built world had started crumbling the moment I stopped paying for it. But mine was just starting to open up. As the weeks turned into months, I started watching Ethan's carefully curated life unravel in real time, mostly through the bits and pieces that filtered back to me through mutual friends and social media. The first thing to go was the high-end gym membership. Ethan had always posted those polished workout selfies, marble counters, celebrity trainers in the background. The whole successful entrepreneur aesthetic. Once that membership ended, his posts shifted to a basic chain gym with flickering fluorescent lights and worn-out machines. The contrast was impossible to miss. Then came the car. I'd arranged for voluntary repossession once the lease was up. A friend sent me a screenshot of Tyler's story. Ethan standing next to a dented old sedan with a caption joking about his new ride. It was clearly borrowed, probably from his parents. By October, he'd burned through couches, Tyler's, then Brandon's, before landing back with his family. His Instagram went quieter. No more rooftop bars, no more bottles of champagne at trendy spots. When the group still got together, it was sports bars and separate checks. Ethan, the guy who used to insist on the best table and the most expensive apps, suddenly became the one asking if people could spot him until payday. A few people from that old circle reached out with awkward check-ins. Lisa called one afternoon. "Have you heard from Ethan? He's struggling. I think he's learned his lesson." I asked her what lesson that might be. "That he can't treat people the way he treated you," she said quietly. "Lisa," I replied, "you were sitting right there when he called me worthless." You laughed. "If I hadn't overheard, would you have told me?" She didn't have an answer. In November, Ethan's mom called my office, something she'd rarely done while we were together. She'd always been polite but distant, like she thought her son was settling. "Emily, I'm worried about Ethan. He's staying with us now. He says you've been financially punitive." I let the silence sit for a second. "Mrs. Lang, do you believe I was obligated to keep paying for your 31-year-old son's lifestyle after he publicly announced I was worthless and that he was leaving me?" She stumbled through excuses, commitment fears, guy talk, misunderstandings. I stayed calm. With respect, he was never financially independent. I supported him for years while he avoided real work. Continuing that would only teach him he can keep avoiding responsibility. A few days later, his sister Claire called, far less diplomatic. "You're destroying him, Emily. He can't even afford rent. This vindictive streak isn't you." I asked her how many times over the past 3 years she'd seen Ethan pick up a dinner check when we all went out, or pay for flights, hotels, gifts during family events. Silence again. "Claire, he's struggling now because he's finally paying for his own life. Not because I'm cruel, because I stopped enabling him." She hung up, and I felt a small pang of sympathy, not enough to help, but enough to recognize he genuinely wasn't prepared for this. Years of avoiding adult responsibilities had left him completely unequipped. By December, word was he'd moved into his old childhood bedroom and taken a part-time call center job, his first steady paycheck in almost 2 years. He still told anyone who'd listen that I'd been controlling, financially abusive, that I'd ruined him out of spite. The irony seemed lost on him. Meanwhile, something beautiful was happening on my side. I accepted the senior coordinator promotion. Bigger clients, more creative control, travel I actually wanted to do, and a salary that easily covered the life I'd always dreamed of. No stretching, no sacrifices for someone else's image. I signed the lease on a gorgeous downtown loft, hardwood floors, huge windows, city lights at night, the one I'd admired for years but couldn't justify while supporting 2 people. And I finally booked that trip to Greece with my best friend, the one I'd turned down over and over because Ethan needed me available. 2 weeks of sun, incredible food, laughter, and decisions made purely for me. When I posted a few photos, old mutual friends commented on how relaxed and happy I looked. It hit me that I probably hadn't looked that way in a very long time. Some of them even reached out privately to apologize for that night at the restaurant. Watching Ethan's spiral had apparently opened a few eyes. But the real shift was internal. I started cooking again, just for me. Meals I actually liked instead of whatever fit Ethan's latest, clean eating, phase. My evenings were quiet, peaceful, no more tense phone calls pretending to be business while he arranged another golf day. I even dipped a toe into dating, coffee here, a casual dinner there, nothing serious, just remembering what it felt like to spend time with someone who saw me as a person, not a resource. For the first time in years, My life was entirely my own. And it was better than I ever imagined it could be. About a year after that night at the restaurant, I was having lunch with a client when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me open it. Emily, this is Ethan. I know you've blocked my old number. Please don't delete this. I need to tell you something important. I'm getting married. Her name is Lauren. She's incredible. She believes in me in ways you never did. I've finally found someone who sees me for who I really am. Not just what I can provide financially. I wanted you to hear it from me first. I hope you can be happy for me. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then quietly showed it to my client, Rachel, an older woman who'd become a bit of a mentor over the years. She read it, raised an eyebrow, and said, "Let me guess, this is the ex who lived off your income for 3 years?" I nodded. She smiled dryly. That line about her believing in him, in ways you never did. Classic. He's saying his new girlfriend is better because she's willing to bankroll the same fantasy you finally stopped paying for. I laughed, actually laughed, because she was right. I didn't reply. I just deleted the message and went back to my lunch. 3 weeks later, Lisa called with the update I knew was coming. "Did you hear Ethan's engaged? He's posting about it nonstop. True love. Real partnership. Life finally on track." I told her I'd heard. "You okay?" she asked carefully. "Lisa, I'm genuinely relieved it's not me anymore." She paused. "You don't sound upset at all." "Why would I be? His choices don't change my life one bit." And I meant it. Fast forward another 6 months. I was celebrating a big milestone. My company had just been featured in a national industry magazine when Tyler called out of the blue. We'd rebuilt a cautious friendship after his apology months earlier. "You won't believe what happened with Ethan," he said. "Let me guess," I replied. "The engagement fell apart. Worse, Lauren found out about his pattern. They were apartment hunting, and he couldn't qualify for anything decent because his credit is destroyed." When she asked questions, he blamed a controlling ex who ruined him out of spite. Lauren wasn't buying it. She talked to a few people who knew both of you. Got the real story. Turns out he'd been using her cards the same way he used yours. She ended it fast, kicked him out, blocked him everywhere. I felt a flicker of sympathy for Lauren, a stranger I'd never meet. Ethan was back living with his parents, still at the call center job, still telling anyone who'd listen that women only want money and status. The pattern hadn't changed, only the woman had. A couple of months later, I got an unexpected visitor at my office. A man in his 30s, professional but clearly nervous, holding a folder. "Miss Harper, I'm David Ellis. I'm a freelance journalist. Lauren, Ethan's recent ex, gave me your contact. She thought you might be open to sharing your experience for an article I'm writing on financial manipulation in relationships." He explained it gently, warning signs. How smart, successful people can end up supporting partners who contribute nothing. Recovery stories, ways to protect yourself. "She said you handled it perfectly." He added, "Cut it clean, rebuilt beautifully, and never looked back. You were her inspiration." I thought about all the women out there quietly paying for someone else's lifestyle while being told they weren't enough. I agreed, on one condition: no real names for Ethan. This wasn't about public revenge. It was about helping others spot the pattern early. The article came out a few months later. My story was one of 3. Anonymized where needed. The response was overwhelming. Messages from women across the country sharing their own versions, thanking me for putting words to what they'd been living. But the one that meant the most came from a number I didn't recognize. "Hi Emily, this is Lauren. I read the article. Thank you for telling your story. It helped me trust my gut and walk away before I lost years like you almost did. Your strength gave me courage I didn't know I had." That night, I sat on my balcony watching the city lights, wine glass in hand, thinking about how far I'd come. 2 years earlier, I'd been planning a wedding with a man who saw me as worthless but convenient. Now I was independent, thriving, surrounded by people who valued me for me, not for what I could pay for. My phone rang once more that evening, unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Whatever Ethan had left to say, another justification, another plea, another twist of the blame, I wasn't interested. I'd heard everything I needed to hear that night at the Harbor View. Everything after that was just him facing the consequences of his own words, and me finally building the life I deserved without carrying someone who never truly saw me. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop being someone's safety net the moment they show you they don't respect you. Sometimes the sweetest justice isn't revenge at all, it's just living so well, so fully, that you forget there was ever anything to avenge. And sometimes the greatest closure isn't the last conversation, it's realizing you don't need one anymore. You walk away, you heal, and you let the rest take care of itself. Thank you for listening to my story.